I'm going to dissect how Trey Lance became, quite frankly, one of the biggest busts in NFL history on today's episode of Verts. My name is Harrison Graham, and I think there's a lot of pretty simple explanations to how and why this happened, and we're going to dive into all that and break that down here on today's show. But first of all, I want to give you guys a round of applause. We hit 2,000 subscribers on the channel yesterday, just over a month into launching this channel. Your guys' response has been awesome. The more subs we get, the more videos we can do. I promised you guys we would do 2 videos once we hit 2K in a day. That'll either be today or tomorrow. We'll either have a second video later or we'll double up tomorrow. Busy day in the NFL with the waiver wire period. So if it's not today, I promise it will be tomorrow. Big weekend of college football coming up as well. So if you want daily and free NFL coverage here on YouTube for free, we got you covered here on Verts. Let's talk about Trey Lance. And the bottom line is, he just can't play. I watched most of his preseason finale against the Chargers. And by the way, the Chargers were not playing anyone of significance. Now, Dallas wasn't really either, so you do have to factor in who Trey Lance was playing with. But in most of these games in the preseason, they played the Rams too, who historically do not play anybody of significance in the preseason. And Trey Lance got about 90% of the snaps for the Dallas Cowboys this preseason. He just can't play. Now, there's an occasional run, like he had a nice long 45-yard touchdown run, and he looks faster than he did after the injury he had a couple of years ago. So there's some athletic traits there you still like. But as far as playing quarterback, especially in the NFL, he is not a viable player. And I don't even just mean as a starter. I don't think he can be a backup anywhere. I mean, when the Cowboys traded a 4th-round pick for him last year, they kind of said, okay, this is at the end of preseason. He's not going to get much reps this year, but we got 2 years for him. By 2024, this year, he should be able to at least push Cooper Rush to be Dak Prescott's backup. He is nowhere close to being better than Cooper Rush. Like, it is not even a conversation, because when you watch him play, he's just not any good. I mean, some of these picks, the last one, for example, and this is really like a big issue with Trey Lance. He can only throw the fastball. I'm not saying it's the easiest throw of all time, but it's a classic seam pattern. They're at about the 20-yard line, last play of the game, and the linebacker's pretty shallow, so if you just slightly layer the ball, it's a pretty easy touchdown. An average starter hits that throw 90% of the time. He airmails a fastball right to the safety for a pick. And you're just like, what are you doing? And that doesn't even begin to talk about the amount of throws where it's just like, okay, you just didn't see that guy. He's throwing out routes late that get picked off. He's throwing over the middle, can't see the linebacker. Like, he does not see the field. He cannot throw with touch. It's honestly tough to watch. I mean, you're watching this guy, and he had 6 turnovers, could have been 7 because he fumbled in extra time, in a preseason game against players that aren't on rosters today. I mean, it's an ugly scene, and it's kind of interesting too, because when you really think about it, when you think about what the 49ers did to move up and go get this guy, you can make a strong argument that it's the worst draft pick of all time. I don't think he's the biggest bust of all time, because he tries, like, he's a good guy by all accounts, like good in the QB room, seems like a good teammate, all that stuff. Like, Jamarcus Russell got his money and was like, I'm not even watching film, you know? So, like, I can't say he's the biggest bust of all time, but I think you could make a strong argument it's the worst draft pick ever. He is an unplayable commodity. And don't forget, the 49ers traded the number 12 pick and 2 future first-round picks to move up from 12 to 3 to trade Trey Lance, and they were done with him within 18 months. Think about that. He couldn't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo. The next year, they made him the starter just because we have to. We drafted him this high. He gets hurt in the second game, but in the 1.5 games we saw, it was really ugly. I mean, in week 1 that year, he goes to Chicago, and it was pouring rain, so it wasn't ideal. But in a monsoon conditions where you'd think you could run him around a little bit, I mean, he just was awful. and was throwing it to the other team left and right. It was just not good. Gets hurt the next week, so you're like, okay, maybe it's an injury deal. Well, no, the next year in training camp last year, before they traded him to Dallas, even though Brock Purdy finished the year before strong and he was the starter, Kyle Shanahan seemingly kind of kept an open mind, like, okay, we'll let him compete. Not even close. Does not have a chance to beat out Brock Purdy. And people in that building were like, I mean, Sam Darnold is a lot better, you know? And so they traded him. They had already decided he wasn't the guy, but I think they wanted to kind of give him a chance. And so they're like, yep, we gave up 3 firsts to get him. Dallas, we'll take your 4th round pick. I mean, if Brock Purdy doesn't fall into the 49ers' laps, the 49ers, who are one of the better organizations in the league, would be getting ripped a lot more than they have. They kind of got a pass on this deal, and they drafted a guy. When you look at his college resume, he started 1 year at North Dakota State and then 1 game in the COVID year because the FCS schools, they moved their season to the spring. He went pro, so he didn't play, but they had 1 game in the fall that year. But in the 1 year he started, he attempted less than 300 passes. Now with the game after that, and I think he played in a couple games his first year, 318 total collegiate passes. That's nothing. Think about, I think he played 16 games that year for North Dakota State because I think they either won the national championship at that level or got to the national championship. And he had less than 300 pass attempts. So let's just say it's exactly 300. I think it was 287 divided by 16. That's like 17 throws a game. So they're running the ball 70% of the time. A lot of his throws are like screens and, one-read throws. And by the way, they have more talent than anybody at that level. That gets him to getting drafted number 3 overall? Like, I get it to an extent. Like, I'm a big physical traits guy. Like, he's big, he's fast. I get all that. But he's never shown the ability to throw with touch. He played at the FCS level, and yeah, there's been examples of guys working. Carson Wentz at that same school had a pretty good career until he lost his confidence in Philly. Some injuries pile up. He's a backup now. But at one point, he was a very viable starter. But Trey Lance just didn't have the reps. He didn't throw the ball. And the Niners moved heaven and earth to draft this guy. I mean, it's kind of shocking when you look back at it. And I know hindsight's 20/20, but it's not that hard to figure out why this has not worked out. He's played 1 full season of football since 2019. He just hasn't played. And now I'm not saying if he had all these reps, he would have become awesome. I don't think he would have, because you watch him play now and it's just like some of these skills, he's just not that skilled. He can't make different type of throws. He has a strong arm, but he doesn't have great arm talent. There's a difference. People mix those up. Yeah, he can put some RPMs on it. He can rip it, but he can't layer footballs between safeties and linebackers. He can't throw with anticipation. He has no deep ball touch. Like, there's real limitations in what he can do as a passer, and forget the pre-snap, seeing the field. He doesn't do any of that. He just doesn't have the feel for playing the position. Could a lot more reps have helped? I think he should have transferred to a Power 5 program when the COVID stuff was coming down and he knew that season wasn't going to happen. Now, it's hard to blame him. I still think it was probably the right call for him as an individual. He became the number 3 pick and got $30 million. So even though he's probably never going to have a long career, what if he goes to a Power 5 and sucks? Well, then he's like a 5th round pick at best, and he makes 1/10 of the money. So I don't think he's regretting it, but to become a good pro, you needed more reps. We've seen this even with guys who play at big programs. Mitch Trubisky, 1-year college starter, can't play in the NFL. Can't play in the NFL. He's barely a viable backup now. It just is what it is. So I fit on a lot of these attributes. You watch him play, and it's he just has no feel for the game. Now, again, good athletic profile. Could he morph into a Taysom Hill guy because he's 6'2", 6'3", 225? I think that's possible. But sometimes people say that with Justin Fields. It's say what you want about Fields. He is leaps and bounds better than Trey Lance. It is not even close. If every team only carries 2 quarterbacks, and I know some carry 3, he's not a top 64 guy. And I would say he's closer to 96 than 64. I think there are a lot of teams in this league that have better quarterbacks in their practice squad than Trey Lance, who was on the Cowboys active roster. So I don't think he has a future. If he wants any chance of ever even being a decent backup, I really do think he should go play spring football. I know that would be demeaning for a guy that went top 5 just a few years ago, but he can't play. He looks like a guy who hasn't had reps. It's not hard to figure out. Didn't have many reps in college. Niners tried to make him the starter. They saw he couldn't play. He got hurt. They moved on because the teammates were like, he's not any good. And Shanahan was like, I don't care that we moved heaven and earth to get him. Brock Purdy is much better. So it's kind of crazy. And I think the lesson here is pretty simple. And we've seen this again and again and again, but especially for a small school guy. Like 1 year of college when you didn't even throw the ball a ton, you can't draft that player that high. Like this is an NFL miss here. Because, yeah, the 49ers took him 3rd, and I'm not sure anyone else would have taken him that high. He would have gone first round, though. Top 10, top 15. Someone would have taken him. And I think the NFL just missed here. It's like, guys, he has not played. He played 1 year at North Dakota State, and he ran the ball more than he threw it. It's an all-time miss. One of the worst draft picks ever. The Niners got away with it because they lucked into Brock Purdy. And, I mean, is he on an NFL roster next year? Dallas is only keeping him because they traded a pick for him. And, you know, cutting him doesn't save them any money, so why not? But I think his career is in jeopardy. It would not shock me if he's playing in the UFL next year. And it's nothing against him. None of this is personal. But it's a business, and he's just not very good. So that's kind of my analysis on how and why Trey Lance became a bust. It's pretty simple. Didn't play a ton in college. When he's played in the NFL, he hasn't looked good. Hasn't gotten many reps. The reps he has gotten, it's been ugly. 6 turnovers in a preseason game against guys who are either on practice squads or out of the league today. Not very good. All right, more to come here on 4 Verts. More NFL coverage. College football weekend. We'll preview the opening weekend slate. Should be a lot of fun. My name is Harrison Graham. Let's keep this channel growing. Hit that subscribe button. See you guys soon.